Hey everyone, just a quick reminder. Only about 25% of you watching are subscribed to the channel. If you're enjoying the content, hitting that subscribe button would really help the channel grow. And while you're at it, smash that like button too. It helps a ton, and lets me know you're enjoying the content. Thanks for being here, and let's dive into the story. It was August 1995, and we were hotter than a goat's ass in a pepper patch. Our college basketball team was on a school-sponsored educational vacation to Egypt. Yeah, right. More like a, let's pretend this isn't a tax write-off kind of deal. We weren't exactly a prestigious Ivy League squad. Hell, our biggest claim to fame was beating a team called the Wichita Wheat Threshers in double overtime because their point guard had heat stroke and shat himself mid-game. True story. To make this trip happen, we spent 6 months fundraising like we were in a Baptist youth group. I personally sold 214 hot dogs outside a Home Depot in July while wearing a cardboard sign that said, "Help send a baller to the Sphinx." Lucas sold candy bars, Steve did car washes, and Colby, our 6'5" point guard, somehow convinced his cousin to pose as his sugar daddy on OnlyFans. This was pre-internet, mind you. We're talking Polaroids and a fax machine. Desperate times. So anyway, after months of hustle, we finally touched down in Egypt. We were dumb as hell and sunburned within 20 minutes. Joey, our backup center from Kentucky, packed sunscreen but left it in the checked luggage. "Didn't want to spill on my Twizzlers," he said. Priorities. We were out near the pyramids, walking around like we knew what we were doing. Half of us had cargo shorts, the other half had fanny packs. Lucas was wearing both like some sort of tactical dad. He's the one who found it. The scroll. It was wedged between some stones like a piece of ancient junk mail. The edges were singed like someone had tried to burn it but then got distracted. It was old, brittle, and covered in what looked like dried blood. Lucas, being the most paranoid out of all of us, he once cried during a haunted hayride because a guy in a scream mask got too close, refused to open it. He handed it to Colby. Colby wasn't scared of jack shit. This was a man who once fought a raccoon shirtless in a Walmart parking lot because it stole his beef jerky. He looked at the scroll and went, "Guys, listen up. This here note says." He paused for dramatic effect, holding the scroll like it was the holy grail of bad ideas. "Do not climb the pyramid. Rule 1. All right, fair enough. Rule 2. Don't look for the hidden door." Steve cut him off, shouting, "Guys, I think I feel a handle under my foot." He was standing exactly 6 paces from where Lucas found the scroll. No joke. Before anyone could say, "Steve, maybe don't..." Joey, being the impulsive redneck he was, reached down and yanked open a metal hatch hidden beneath the sand. We all froze. "Joey," I whispered, "what the fuck did you just open?" "I don't know," he said, brushing sand off his hands. "But if it's treasure, I'm buying a Camaro." For a full minute, we just stood there in total silence. Our brains stuck between, "we're all gonna die," and, "but what if it's like, really cool?" Eventually, we did what any group of dumbass 19-year-olds with no supervision would do. We climbed into the tunnel. It was dark as hell. We used our Nokia bricks as flashlights. Joey had a headlamp because of course he did. He was the kind of guy who carried a fishing hook, a bottle opener, and a snakebite kit everywhere he went. About 30 yards in, the tunnel got colder. That was the first thing we noticed. In the middle of the goddamn desert, and it felt like an air conditioner was leaking down the walls. Then we saw them. Shadows at first. Slumped figures that looked like someone left a bunch of mummies on demo mode. Their eyes gleamed in the dark like they were watching, waiting. One moved, just a twitch, and Colby damn near swung his flashlight like a club. "What the hell was that?" Steve whispered. "Probably just..." Joey began. The figure took a step. "Nope," Joey yelped, his country drawl cracking like a beer can. "That ain't just shadow play, that's some straight-up Scooby-Doo shit." We started backing up, phones shaking in our hands. Lucas, being the only semi-intelligent one of us, pulled out the scroll again. "Guys, there's more," he said, frantically unrolling it. "It's got new rules." The writing had changed. I shit you not. The scroll updated like a fucking iOS patch. Rule 4, they fear fire. Rule 5, stay together. We looked around. Where the hell is Zane? Someone whispered. Zane had been behind us. Quiet, lanky, always wearing a backwards cap like he was in a Blink 182 video. We called his name. No response. Panic set in like Taco Bell in your lower intestine. We ran, backtracking through the tunnel, screaming his name, slipping on sand-covered stone. Finally, we found him, just standing there like a creep, staring down at a massive, dust-covered chest. "I think it's locked," he said, voice eerily calm. Colby, never one to think things through, grabbed a rock and smashed the lock clean off. Bad idea. The chest flew open like it was spring-loaded. A cold wind blasted out. Then came the screaming. Not ours. Something else. Something that had been waiting. Black mist poured out like smoke, twisting into shapes. Faces, claws, teeth that didn't belong to anything living. We all screamed in unison. Colby tripped over his own feet. Steve started praying. Joey pulled out a Bic lighter and started waving it like it was a damn Excalibur. The mist pulled back, just a little. Lucas shoved the scroll in my face. "Last rule," he yelled. Rule 6, return them to the chest. Seal it with fire. There was no treasure, just a haunted-ass box full of ancient nightmare juice. And now we had to figure out how to put the lid back on Pandora's Tupperware. But that's where I'll stop for now. The chest was open and we were screwed. You know how in movies when someone opens an ancient cursed artifact, the music gets all dramatic and everyone yells, "No!" Yeah, well, real life doesn't have a soundtrack. Just 6 college basketball idiots shouting, "Dude!" What the fuck? While a cloud of death mist swirls around like it's auditioning for Ghostbusters 4, the Pyramid Reckoning. Colby scrambled to his feet and started trying to close the chest like it was a freaking Tupperware lid that won't click shut. "It's not working, it's not working," he kept yelling, pushing down with his whole damn body. "No shit," Steve yelled back. "You think ghosts are gonna just politely get back in their box?" Meanwhile, Joey, God bless him, was flicking his Bic lighter like he was trying to start a campfire in a tornado. Lucas was reading the scroll again, like maybe it had an FAQ section. "Guys, it says seal it with fire." That's all it says. Just that. "Seal it with fire? What fire?" I screamed, dodging a ghost tentacle that whooshed by like a damn evil jellyfish. Joey, still holding his lighter, suddenly had an idea. He pulled off his backpack, yanked out his emergency bottle of Jack Daniels. Yes, this man packed liquor on an educational trip to Egypt and poured it all over the chest lid. "Back up!" he shouted. He lit it. The flames roared up like a bonfire on meth. The black mist screamed. Like, legit screamed. I didn't even know mist could scream. It hissed and coiled and tried to fight the fire, but it didn't like that one bit. It was like watching Dracula get flashbanged. Slowly, painfully, the mist got sucked back into the chest, like it was being vacuumed by Satan's Dyson. One by one, the faces, the claws, the screeching shapes all collapsed back into that cursed container. With one final whump, the chest slammed shut. Silence. Complete. Echoing silence. The fire was still going, dancing on the old wood, making us all look like cavemen who just survived a saber-tooth attack. Colby was curled up against the wall, breathing like he'd just finished suicides in practice. Steve was staring at his hands. Zane was pale as a sheet and whispering, "I didn't open it. I didn't open it." Lucas, the only one still halfway functioning, unrolled the scroll one last time. It was blank. No more rules. No more blood writing. Just an empty, burnt-up rag of ancient nightmare fuel. "Okay," Joey panted, putting the cap back on his jack. "So, maybe we don't touch random handles in the sand anymore." "No shit," I muttered, slapping sand off my arms. "Let's agree. No more hidden doors, no more cursed tombs, and no more dumbassery." We started heading back up the tunnel, weak-legged, dehydrated, and emotionally violated. That's when we realized we didn't come in this way. The tunnel twisted differently. The ceiling was lower. The air was warmer now, sticky and foul, like a porta potty on a sunny day. Steve looked around. Anyone else notice this ain't the same? Lucas checked his phone compass. We're heading west. We came from the east. How does that even... Zane began. And then we saw the markings. Hieroglyphs. Fresh ones. They were wet, glistening like they'd just been painted. I swear to God, one of the symbols blinked at me. Like, literally blinked. We stopped. Nobody moved. Then, from deeper inside the tunnel, we heard a sound. Like stone grinding on stone. Like something waking up. Colby, big, brave, idiot Colby, pulled out his phone and whispered, "We're gonna die in this bitch." We ran. We didn't even talk about it. Instinct took over. Just a full-on basketball team sprint down the haunted catacombs of ancient Egypt. We ran past mummified corpses that hadn't been there before. One of them turned its head and watched us. We didn't stop. Eventually, we found a set of stone steps leading up. It looked newer, less eroded, like it had been built just for us. Which, honestly, only made it worse. "Dude," Joey panted as we climbed, "what if we just stay in Egypt? Like, never go home? I'll marry a camel farmer's daughter and grow dates. You can all crash at my place." "Shut up and climb," Lucas said, face drenched in sweat. "You ever seen a horror movie where the redneck cracks jokes? He dies first." We reached the top. There was a stone door, no handle. Just a square block with a single sentence carved into it. "Say the name of the curious one." We froze. "Which one of us opened the chest?" Lucas asked. Colby pointed. "Joey did." Joey looked offended. "I was trying to help. Y'all were the ones chanting open it," like we were on Double Dare." "It says curious," Zane pointed out. "Who was the one asking what was in it the whole time?" They all looked at me. "Wait, what?" I said. "No, I didn't even touch it." "You said, and I quote," Lucas recited in a mocking voice, "it might be treasure, and we're not a bunch of pussies." The stone rumbled. "Okay, fine," I shouted. "It was me." The stone door opened. We climbed out, coughing and covered in sand and ghost soot. The sun was still out. Tourists were walking around like nothing happened. It had only been 11 minutes. We'd been down there for hours. Joey sat down in the sand, chugged the rest of his Jack, and said, "Well, that escalated quicker than my last Tinder date." We never spoke of it again. Not in public, not to reporters, not even to our coach, who yelled at us for being late to the museum tour and smelling like smoke. But that scroll, yeah, it came with us. Lucas kept it, sealed it in a Ziploc bag and put it in his sock drawer back in the dorms. And that's when things got even weirder. Back in the States, things felt off. We'd survived a ghost tunnel under a pyramid, sealed away a chest full of shrieking mummy vapor, and then got yelled at by our coach for being disrespectful to the Egyptian culture. The man had a unibrow and a god complex. He could kiss my sandy ass. We flew home a few days later. The flight was long, boring, and mildly traumatic. Zane cried quietly into his tray table. Joey kept muttering about shadow people in the clouds. Colby somehow slept the entire flight like a tranquilized moose. And Lucas was clutching that scroll like it was a newborn baby with stock tips. "I don't think we should have brought this," he whispered to me somewhere over the Atlantic. "You think?" I snapped. "That scroll made your mouth write checks your soul couldn't cash." "Look, it's not like TSA would have let me check a flaming chest of ghost juice. It's just paper. Paper's harmless." I turned to look at him. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't slept since the tunnel. "You okay, man?" "No," he said flatly. "Something's still with us." We all noticed it. Steve started sleepwalking. I caught him once at 3 a.m. in our shared dorm, just standing in the hallway whispering, "Seal it with fire," over and over again like a haunted Alexa. Colby said the eyes in the gym's trophy case blinked at him. Joey claimed the water in his toilet was turning black. "It hisses at me when I pee," he told us one day at practice, like it was a totally normal sentence. And then, the nightmares. All of us, started dreaming about the same thing. A hallway, sand pouring down from the ceiling, and something chasing us. Something that didn't walk. It slithered. It growled in ancient tongue, made of wind and gravel and hate. Lucas finally cracked. We were in the middle of Taco Tuesday at the dining hall when he stood up, threw his chalupa on the ground like it had insulted his mother, and screamed, "We have to burn the damn thing!" Heads turned. A cafeteria worker dropped a tray of lasagna. Joey choked on his Baja Blast. We followed Lucas outside to the edge of campus. He took us behind the gym where he had a fire pit going, already lit like he'd been planning this for days. He held the scroll up dramatically, like it was Simba and the Lion King, and shouted, "Back to hell with you, ancient bitch paper!" He tossed it into the fire. It didn't burn. We all leaned in, expecting it to curl up and crisp like any normal thing made of fibrous plant pulp. But it just sat there, flames licking it, wrapping around it, doing absolutely jack squat. "Why isn't it burning?" I asked. Lucas pulled it out with tongs. Yes, he brought tongs, and held it up. Not a single scorch mark. "Guys," he whispered, "I think it wants to stay." "I think we need holy water," Zane said. "I think we need a goddamn exorcist," Colby added. That night, the dreams got worse. In mine, the hallway was longer. I saw the chest at the end. It was wide open. The mist came out again, but this time it had a face. A twisted, half-rotted face with black eyes and a jaw that unhinged like a snake. It whispered my name. Not just "Hey bro." Whisper. Personalized whisper. With emotion. Like it wanted me. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, and found Joey already in my room, holding a flashlight and a hunting knife. "I saw it too," he said. "Same thing." By now, we were full-blown panicking. Lucas started researching ancient Egyptian curses in the school library, which was 95% books and 5% weird-ass sorority girls who believed in crystals. He came back the next day looking like he'd aged 6 years. "Okay, so apparently," he said, slamming a dusty tome down, "there were these things called Ka spirits, guardians of tombs. If you disturbed one, it followed you. Fed on your soul until it felt like you'd paid for the disrespect." "Well, that's just great," Steve said, biting into a mozzarella stick. "We're gonna get soul-sucked by mummy ghosts because Joey has impulse control issues." "Hey!" Joey yelled. "I was trying to help." "It wasn't your fault," Lucas said. "It was the scroll. It made us find the chest." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying..." Lucas took a breath. "It's not a scroll." We all stared at him. "It's a map. A cursed one. It tells you where to go, gives you rules not to follow. And when you do follow them, it leads you to exactly what it wants you to open." "Like bait," Zane muttered. Lucas nodded. "The scroll wanted us to open that chest. It wanted us to release that thing." We sat there in silence. Colby finally said, "So, how do we get rid of it?" Lucas looked at us, eyes wide with a mix of terror and guilt. "We follow the last rule." "What last rule?" I asked. Lucas reached into his hoodie pocket. He pulled out the scroll again. Only now. It had writing on it. New writing. Just one line. "Return the chest to the fire that made it." Joey swallowed hard. "We left the chest in the tunnel." "Exactly," Lucas said. "Looks like we're going back to Egypt." When you tell your school you want to go back to Egypt to finish some important archaeological research, you'd be amazed how fast they offer absolutely zero assistance. We were told, and I quote, "You've already used your field trip budget. Try again next fiscal year." So we did what any determined, cursed, possibly doomed basketball squad would do. We started fundraising again. Back to slinging hot dogs, selling candy bars, washing cars. At one point, Joey offered snake wrangling lessons for $5 a pop in the parking lot behind a Circle K. He didn't have any snakes, just a garden hose and a dream. After 3 weeks of grind and some mild begging, we scraped together enough money for the cheapest plane tickets known to man. Like, so cheap we had to connect through Iceland. We flew with an airline that gave you a parachute, just in case. When we finally landed in Cairo, it was night. The city was buzzing, but our nerves were fried. Zane hadn't slept in 4 days. Lucas was wearing sunglasses like a hungover detective. Colby had grown a weird stress mustache. We headed straight for the pyramids. No guide, no tour. Just 6 sweaty, traumatized idiots sneaking across the sand dunes like the world's least competent Navy SEAL team. "We sure this is where we were?" Joey asked, checking the area with a headlamp duct taped to his forehead. "Same dune, same rocks," Lucas said, holding the scroll like it might bite him. "The door's still here." Sure enough, the sand had mostly blown over it again, but the outline of the hatch was visible. Steve hesitated. "This feels final." Lucas nodded. "We go down. We put the chest in the fire. We seal it. And that's it. We walk away. Or we die in the same clothes we flew here in," Colby muttered. "Which is honestly worse." We pried the hatch open and dropped down into the dark. The tunnel was different. This time, it welcomed us. That's the only way to describe it. The air felt thicker, heavier, like we'd been expected, as if the walls themselves were whispering, "You're late." We moved deeper, the only sound being our shoes scraping against stone and the occasional fart from Joey, who claimed nerves made him air leak. As we approached the place where we'd opened the chest, the torches along the walls, yes, torches, flickered to life on their own. No joke, like a haunted Olive Garden. And there it was, the chest, still sealed, sitting in the middle of the stone floor like it was waiting for round 2. Lucas stepped forward. "All right." The scroll said, "Return the chest to the fire that made it." That means the original fire, not the one Joey drunkenly lit with whiskey. We need to find the source. "How the hell do we find an ancient mystical fire?" I asked. The scroll answered. Lucas gasped. "What?" Zane asked. He turned the cloth toward us. More blood writing had appeared. "Follow the burning man. He walks between death and ash." "The hell does that mean?" Colby said. And that's when we heard it. Footsteps, crunching sand and stone. From the far end of the chamber, a figure emerged. He was on fire, like full-on walking bonfire, but not dying. His skin cracked and glowed, his eyes were embers, and yet, he walked calmly, slowly, as if he wasn't a flaming corpse but a museum docent who just happened to be flammable. He didn't speak. He just pointed. A tunnel lit up behind him, torches igniting one by one down a winding path. Without a word, we followed. "You guys realize this is probably where we die, right?" Steve muttered as we trailed the burning man into the depths. "Yup," Joey said. "But at least we go out doing something cooler than choking on a chalupa." The tunnel grew hotter. Steam hissed from cracks in the walls. Symbols etched into the stone glowed red. The burning man stopped in front of a massive chamber door. He pointed again, then vanished. Just poof, like a human sparkler being blown out. "Okay," I whispered. "That's not creepy at all." We opened the door. Inside was a circular chamber, vast and echoing. In the center, a fire pit the size of a hot tub, flames dancing higher than our heads. Around it were stone carvings, spirits being sucked into flames, chests burning, symbols matching those from the scroll. "This is it," Lucas said. "This is where it was made. This is where we end it." The chest floated. No hands, no pushing. It just lifted off the ground and hovered over the pit. And then it screamed. Not a noise you hear, it's a noise you feel. A sound that grabs your bones and rattles your soul like dice in a Yahtzee cup. The chest thrashed in the air like it didn't want to go, like it knew. The scroll fluttered from Lucas's hand, hovering mid-air. It burned. Real fire this time. The scroll finally ignited, curling and charring into black ash. The chest cracked open mid-air and black mist surged out, but the fire grabbed it, pulled it in, tore it apart. The screaming grew louder. We covered our ears. Colby fell to his knees. Zane started weeping. I swear I saw a face in the flames, something ancient, furious, and terrified. Then, silence. The chest dropped into the fire. The flames turned blue, then white, then out. The chamber dimmed. The heat faded. It was over. We stood there, stunned, breathing heavily, not sure what to do with ourselves now that we weren't actively being haunted. Lucas whispered, "I think we're free." We turned to leave. But just as we stepped toward the exit, a new tunnel opened to our right, stone sliding apart like jaws. Inside was a room we hadn't seen before. And in the center, a small box, wooden, clean, untouched by time. Colby looked at us. "So? Y'all think maybe this one has treasure?" We stared at the box like it had just dared us to ruin our lives again. It was smaller than the first chest, about the size of a shoebox, made of dark wood that didn't look Egyptian, more like something you'd see buried under floorboards in a haunted Victorian mansion. Smooth, polished, not a speck of dust on it, which was strange, considering we were deep underground inside a cursed fire chamber that just swallowed a screaming hellbox. "All right," I said, raising both hands like a referee. "Let's all collectively not do the dumb thing again." Joey squatted in front of it. "Guys, I'm just saying, it didn't hiss, no black smoke, and it ain't glowing. That's already a better resume than the last box." Steve rolled his eyes. "Joey, last time you opened something, a ghost tried to French kiss my soul." "It could be treasure," Colby said, rubbing his chin like he was Indiana Jones with a GED. "I mean, maybe it's a reward for doing the right thing. A little thanks for not dooming humanity gift." Lucas narrowed his eyes. "Or maybe it's bait. One more test to see if we learned a damn thing." We stared at it in silence. The box just sat there. Peaceful, innocent, unassuming. Like the world's most dangerous IKEA storage solution. Zane muttered, "Screw it. If something evil pops out, I'll just punch it." And before anyone could stop him, he opened the lid. We all flinched like it was gonna scream again. But nothing happened. No wind, no death rattle, no Egyptian demon belching out Latin curses. Inside, resting on black silk, was a gold necklace. Not just gold, ancient gold. Heavy links, tarnished slightly, with a blood-red gem in the center that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. At the base of the gem was an engraving in hieroglyphs. Lucas leaned in, translating out loud with a dry voice. "To the one who returned the fire, fortune, but not without burden." Joey whistled. "Hot damn. That's gotta be worth a fortune." "Or it's cursed," I said. "Or both," Colby added. "Curse first, cash later." Lucas gently picked it up. It was warm. Not from the fire, inherently warm, like it had its own pulse. He tucked it into a canvas pouch and slid it into his jacket. "We're not selling it," he said. "Not touching it again until we get it to a museum or someone smarter than us." "Someone smarter than us?" Steve scoffed. "Bro, my dog is smarter than us." We sealed the box back up and left it behind. As we walked away, the flames in the pit behind us reignited one final time. Tall, white-hot, and roaring. Then they died out like a candle being pinched. The chamber went dark. We made our way back through the tunnels, up the crumbling stone steps, and out into the cool night air. It was dawn. The desert was quiet, painted in orange and pink. We sealed the hatch behind us as best we could. Lucas piled stones over it like a man burying a coffin. Before we left, he pulled out a marker and wrote across the top slab, "Do not open. You are not special. Turn around." We got back to the States a few days later. Nobody asked questions. Nobody followed up. It was like the whole world had politely agreed not to remember what happened. But things changed. The nightmares stopped. The whispering vanished. No more sleepwalking. No more ghost reflections in mirrors. We all started breathing again, laughing again. Joey even got his toilet fixed. He said it flushed like a dream now. Lucas kept the necklace locked in a reinforced safe. Had it analyzed by a professor in the archaeology department who said it was the oldest piece of jewelry I've ever seen in person. 5th dynasty, possibly pre-dynastic. But when the professor asked where we found it, Lucas just said, "Tourist shop." Got lucky. We didn't speak of the scroll again, didn't speak of the burning man, or the whispering chest. But sometimes when we're hanging out, Lucas will pull out the pouch and look at the necklace, just for a second. And when he does, the gem pulses, faintly, like it's waiting. And I swear, sometimes I can hear something, not words, just pressure, like the desert calling us back. But we're never going back, because some doors stay closed and curiosity, yeah, that shit kills.